Welcome back, ScreenRanters. You all look wonderful. When watching a film or TV show, we can all expect some romance to pop up. We've tried to mirror those scenes. It didn't work out too well. The actors on screen make it so easy and effortless. However, behind the scenes, the actors have sometimes problems with kissing their co-stars, all for various reasons, which is what today's video is all about. Some nice, juicy gossip. Harry Potter, Twilight, Mission Impossible, and even Spiderman have all got entries today. Even The Notebook makes an appearance.
If you're a bird, I'm a bird.
So, now that we've whet your appetite, let's get cracking. The Twilight franchise is one of the biggest film sagas in history. For better or worse, we watched the cast grow on screen for many years. At the time of Eclipse in 2010, Kristen Stewart was dating co-star and now new Batman Robert Pattinson. With the characters' will they won't they relationship, the third film decided to tease another possible romance. And so it was written that Taylor Lautner and Stewart would mush their faces together on screen. As much as some fans squealed at this moment, the actors themselves weren't too keen. As we mentioned, Stewart was with Pattinson then. That would have made proceedings a tad more awkward, especially if Pattinson was on set at the time. Stewart also criticized the kiss for being out of character for her part as Bella Swan. She stated it was so against everything that Bella stood for. Well, still a better love story than Twilight, right? Silver Linings Playbook was responsible for Jennifer Lawrence's first and, so far, only Oscar win. Many of the cast received Oscar nominations as well. However, the filming of the critically acclaimed moving picture wasn't so smooth. Bradley Cooper is often considered a bit of a dreamboat. Yet during an interview, he let the audience know about his kissing abilities, and he wasn't praising himself. Instead, he mentioned that Lawrence wasn't a fan, at all. After the second take of the kiss, Lawrence bluntly told him that he was a wet kisser. Ouch. Probably not something Cooper should admit to in a public forum. Obviously, the voice actor for Rocket Raccoon wasn't delighted to hear this non-compliment. However, their slobbery tonsil tennis scene didn't look too bad on camera, apparently. The scene ended up winning an MTV Movie Award for Best On-Screen Kiss. Definitely an award Cooper should have displayed in his house. Jennifer Lawrence is in another entry. Maybe she's the problem. Not really. At least this entry isn't about poor snogging techniques. For Passengers, Chris Pratt and Lawrence would have to partake in a few romance scenes. However, Lawrence was so scared in having to do this. At the time, it was one of her first on-screen nookie scenes. During the production of Passengers, Pratt was married. Lawrence felt horrible anxiety about kissing a married man. She felt so horrendous that before the scene, she had a few alcoholic beverages, all to give her some much needed Dutch courage. Sadly, it didn't work. Instead, it just amplified what she was already feeling. The guilt sat in her stomach and nagged at her some more. So much so that she even called her mother to seek permission. She needed to hear that it was okay to do this. Luckily, she got through it okay. Maybe Lawrence appears in another entry. Watch on to see. Everyone loves Harry Potter. If they say they don't, then they're lying! Sorry, I'm not sure what just happened there. Right, anyway. In the final film of the Harry Potter saga, Deathly Hallows Part 2, the time had come for Ron and Hermione to suck face. Many years and films led to this inevitable moment. But it's something which the actors, Rupert Grint and Emma Watson, weren't too thrilled by. Over the decade-long franchise, the two had developed a close relationship. They've described their relationship in the same vein as siblings. It's rather understandable that they found having to kiss a tad icky. But rather than overthink it, Watson decided to just get it over with. She pounced on Grint during the filming. However, it didn't work. They had to reshoot it as the two giggled from awkwardness. Grint spoke in an interview of being horrified as Watson's face edged closer to his. And yet they made it look so natural on screen. Acting! Marshall and Lily were the stability romance in How I Met Your Mother, as the rest of the characters had a torrid time in their love lives. Due to the natural chemistry between Jason Segel and Allison Hannigan, fans assumed everything was smashing behind the scenes. Except it wasn't. Well, mostly it was. But there was one area that Hannigan did struggle with. Segel is a heavy smoker. In between scenes, he would puff on a cigarette, even if a kiss scene were about to take place with Marshall and Lily. Hannigan hated this. In an interview, she mentions that it was like kissing an ashtray. Siegel did try to make the experience less of a burden for Hannigan. He would chew gum or use mints. Bless him and his consideration. However, it didn't mask it very well. Hannigan could still smell the tobacco sticks.
Hey, Lil, you smoke. Damn it!
He did quit for a year, but eventually fell off the smoky wagon. Getting along with people can be tricky, but when you're in the same film, it's really necessary, which is something that Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte struggled to do. Their unbridled hatred of each other developed in 1994's I Love Trouble. The two are portraying love interests. However, instead, their relationship came across like most of our relationships, awkward and detached. The displeasure got so bad that they even had to shoot their scenes separately. That poor crew had to accommodate all of this. Even after the film was done and dusted, the two couldn't let go of their beef. Roberts described Nolte as completely disgusting. Nolte didn't hide from returning a verbal shot. He slated Roberts by saying, "She's not a nice person, everyone knows that." Wow! Years later, Roberts even performed an impression of an unnamed co-star having a temper tantrum. We wonder who that was meant to be. In 2011, Robert Pattinson was becoming a household name, all thanks to Twilight. So he took a role in Water for Elephants with Reese Witherspoon. The film shows their two characters falling in love. Aww. However, Witherspoon wasn't a fan of any lip-to-lip touching with Pattinson. And we really don't blame her. See, Pattinson at that time was suffering with a horrendous cold. Witherspoon spoke in interviews that he was snorting and snotting every second. Sorry if you're eating as you're watching, but it gets worse. She described the gross green color of the snot as well. Yummy. No one would put their face near someone like that. Otherwise, you can almost guarantee you'll get the sniffles too. Sadly, as an actor, Witherspoon had to suck it up and do it. She kissed his gooey face. Yuck. Hopefully for doing that, Witherspoon got a juicy, massive bonus to ease her horror. 50 Shades of Grey. Loads of people, including your mom, read this book multiple times when it was released. The erotica novel became so popular that a film was inevitable. Many people were disappointed by the toned-down version on the big screen, including your mom. Sorry, last one. Another area that fell short in the film was the chemistry between the two leads. Considering the film's content, chemistry is essential. The rumor mill began to churn on why that was the case. The big rumor was that Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan hated each other. They took all the passion they should have had on screen and used it in their mutual loathing instead. Even in promotional interviews, they came across as very wooden and awkward with each other. The two have tried to dispel that rumor through social media, but some fans aren't buying it. So if their animosity is real, the film's infamous scenes couldn't have been too much fun to shoot. When Mission Impossible 2 was announced, a lot of people were excited. It was the sequel to the smash hit Mission Impossible. However, one person who wasn't as excited would have been Thandie Newton. She was cast as the romantic interest to Tom Cruise's character. She hated the spit-swapping scenes. But it's not down to Cruise's involvement. Sorta. She mostly hated the pressure. She would have to perform the snog over and over again for different takes. She talked in an interview that during a roll in the hay scene, many of the crew would watch the proceedings and change aspects again and again, which of course kept stopping the flow of the scene. It can be hard to replicate that energy time and again. On top of this, she had to be really conscious of the kiss. Otherwise, their faces may look bizarre on screen. Wow, who knew a peck could be so much trouble? Pranks by actors aren't uncommon. They often like to play tricks and whatnot on their fellow cast members. Dane Cook found this out when shooting My Best Friend's Girl in 2008. The comedian was playing a sleazy guy that was hitting on his best friend's partner, just like the title suggests. The actor in the opposing role was Kate Hudson. Since the film, Cook has brought up in interviews that Hudson was his worst on-screen kiss ever. That's a big title for Hudson. But Hudson likely made it terrible on purpose, just to get under Cook's skin and annoy him. The reason it was so bad, according to Cook, was Hudson had eaten something right beforehand. Whatever it was that she ate, it was dosed with a lot of onions. Maybe Hudson's a big Grinch fan. Regardless, it seems Cook really didn't enjoy the experience at all. On the plus side, it means Hudson's plan worked very well. Spring Breakers was released in 2011. It gave two former Disney stars a chance to shed that child-friendly image, those being Vanessa Hudgens and Selena Gomez. The film involved a lot of adult situations, to say the least, something which was missing from High School Musical. In one scene during Spring Breakers, James Franco, Ashley Benson, and Hudgens were in a jacuzzi. Aside from the water, it got rather steamy in another way. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Everyone looks like they're having fun. But in reality, Hudgens didn't. At least partly, anyway. It turns out she wasn't a fan of the tongue wrestling with Franco. Instead, she'd rather do that with Benson. She was quoted as saying, "Because she's a girl and I was close to her and I felt comfortable." Granted, she didn't directly say why she wasn't a fan of smooching Franco. However, we can probably read between the lines for the actual reasoning. Prior to becoming one of the highest paid actors on the planet, Dwayne Johnson was starring in Get Smart with Steve Carell. Due in part to his time as a wrestler, Johnson has great comedic timing, something which came in useful for this film. In one scene, Carell's character has to stop Johnson's nefarious scheme. To achieve this, Carell kisses him as a form of distraction. Since that moment, Johnson has disclosed his displeasure in doing that scene, and it all stems from Carell's equipment. According to Johnson, Carell's lips are like the bottom of a cat's paw, and his tongue is like kitty litter. You know, he paints a really great word picture. We're a tad concerned how Johnson knows what those feel like on his lips. He must have a very confused cat. It's unlikely that Carell will ever get to smell what The Rock is cooking again. In 2008, Hugh Jackman was set to star opposite another great Australian, Nicole Kidman, for the film Australia. The epic romance film would include a passionate, loving face mash scene. The two actors are known to be great friends, which makes the scene a tad uncomfortable for them, especially for Jackman. He mentioned in an interview that he didn't enjoy laying one on Kidman. Instead, he stated that it's often easier to snog someone that you don't know rather than a close friend. Aside from their off-screen relationship, Jackman also disliked the filming process of the scene. In particular, the amount of people that were on set. He stated, "It's never particularly comfortable making out with someone in front of 70 people. He goes on to say it doesn't really turn him on doing that. We felt like we learned a lot about what romantically works for the former Wolverine in that interview. From 1992 to 1997, the Martin TV show graced our screens. This sitcom was a fan favorite up until its cancellation. And the reason for its cancellation? Well, that comes from a lawsuit filed by Tisha Campbell against Martin Lawrence. On screen, they played a romantic couple. Off screen, it was very different. Campbell's lawsuit stated that Lawrence was harassing her and making constant advances. According to Campbell, Lawrence grew more jealous and possessive of her as the series went on. He became obsessed, especially when Campbell got engaged to Dwayne Martin. Even though Campbell rejected Lawrence's advances every time, he wouldn't drop his pursuit. Due to all these factors, Campbell refused to do any romantic scenes. It got to the point that she didn't want to do any scenes with Lawrence at all. With tensions rising behind the scenes, they decided to end the show rather than prolong this uncomfortable situation. Both Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen have a reputation for being party fanatics. Remember the Tiger Blood episode? Yeah, us too. So, when the two actors were cast in Scary Movie 5 in 2013, everyone expected the two to get on like a house fire. And they did become fast friends. However, the film had a horizontal shuffle scene, and Lohan had reservations. She was concerned with Sheen's reputation. In particular, she didn't want to do any smooching with him, like, at all. Supposedly, the reason is that she didn't want to catch a cold sore from Sheen. Both actors had to sign release forms that stated they didn't have a cold sore at the time. But still, Lohan didn't want to risk it. She outright refused to kiss Sheen. Rather than change the script, the filmmakers brought in a body double for parts of the scene. Two musicians starred in the film Poetic Justice in 1993, and the two couldn't have produced more different music. The stars in question were Janet Jackson and Tupac Shakur. For this film, they were slated to play the love interests for each other. All well and good, but it wasn't. Jackson knew all about Shakur's reputation as a ladies' man. She was so concerned by it that she refused to lip lock with him until he took a blood test. However, Shakur refused to take the test as he saw it as an insult. Many times the filmmakers tried to get him to do it, but each time he knocked them back. Aside from this, the two did get on well during the production. The day after filming wrapped up, Shakur phoned Jackson, only to discover that she had changed her number. Uh-oh. In 2008, James McAvoy and Angelina Jolie got the chance to act together in Wanted. When McAvoy realized he was about to cop off with Jolie for a scene, he wasn't really pleased, which may shock a lot of Jolie fans. See, up until that point, McAvoy had been on set for a good couple of weeks. He had time to settle in and get to know the cast and crew, only Jolie hadn't. In fact, it was her first day on the set, and immediately she had to make face babies with someone she barely knew. Talk about a rough first day. McAvoy found this situation ridiculous on Jolie's behalf. While we tend to assume that it's the fun part of acting, it's often the most stressful part for the actors. You have to get along with your co-kisser in order to feel settled and comfortable, something which can't be done when their first act in the production is making out. Kirsten Dunst's role in 1994's Interview with a Vampire was a weird one. She essentially played a much older vampire that was trapped in the body of a young girl. Dunst was actually 11 years old when she took this part. Vampire films are weird. Due to her character's psychological aging, Dunst started a relationship with Brad Pitt's character. Previously, her character was a surrogate daughter of sorts to Pitt's, which makes it creepier. But with their character's romance, there had to be a peck scene. That one scene seemed to haunt Dunst for a long time. She described it as disgusting. It ended up being Dunst's first ever kiss. Pitt was around 30 at the time of the film's release. Over double her age. Dunst also described herself as a late bloomer in her personal kissing department. Dunst wouldn't kiss another person off screen until she turned 16. Sticking on the topic of Kirsten Dunst, we have another moment that she's involved in where kissing wasn't a fun experience. This time though, it was bad for Tobey Maguire in 2002's Spider-Man. Everyone has tried to do a variation of the famous smooch. You know the one, the upside down spider kiss, of course. Mostly we end up falling while we're upside down and hurting ourselves. We've had a lot of embarrassing trips to the hospital as a result. If you may remember in the film, during that scene, it was raining. A lot. When Dunst pulled down Maguire's mask, there wasn't any protection for Maguire's face. So all the water went straight into his nose. He struggled to breathe as the two locked lips. He had to gasp for air out of the corners of Dunst's mouth. So while we look back on that scene and consider it romantic, in reality, we were watching an actor slowly suffocate. The Notebook is a favorite in the romantic film genre. The outstanding, passionate chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams captured the audience's heart and mind. But behind the scenes, it wasn't as rosy as we saw on screen. In actual fact, Gosling detested McAdams with a passion. Gosling was in the middle of rehearsing a scene with McAdams. In front of the cast and crew, he asked the director Nick Cassavetes to cast someone else in McAdams' role. He stated it was due to a massive lack of chemistry between them. Instead of doing what Gosling said, Cassavetes set up a therapy session for the two. After an hour of them shouting and yelling at each other, everything was better. They now had chemistry. Afterwards, the two even dated in real life. The therapy session must have been magical to fix that mess. Perhaps it could even fix our relationship. Who are we kidding? We're not dating anyone. Is that the wedding march playing? It is? Well, this song seems a tad inappropriate considering this video's topic. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. You make our days special. Which of the entries is the most surprising to you? Do you know of any other examples? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below. Please give the video a like. It makes us feel chuffed. Also, subscribe and click the bell to stay up to date with all of our pop culture content. We'll see you next time, you stunning people.